Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of the Big Bros podcast. My name is Ilan, and I'm joined by my lovely friend and co-host, Jeremy. But more importantly, we are joined by Max Viney, a Brazilian Jiu-jitsu black belt, a multiple-time state and national title winner who's competed at the highest international level. And he now coaches both on the mats and across AFL and AFLW clubs, using grappling principles to give footballers a real physical edge. Max, thanks for joining the Big Bros Potty.
Thanks for having me, guys. Really appreciate you having me here.
Real pleasure. And for me, this is quite exciting because I was telling you just off air, I really wanted someone in the BJJ space, partly because I started doing the sport a couple of years ago. Yep. Disclaimer, pretty shit at it. There's a little saying that goes, you're the nail for the first couple of years until you gain a few skills. I'm definitely not the hammer. Don't think I will be for a while. But in your case, you started BJJ at what age?
I think I was around 14 years old.
What was the pull to get into that sport, given you came from a footballing family? I'm sure there was a lot of pressure to go maybe follow your old man's footsteps or your older brother's footsteps. What was it about BJJ that stuck for you?
I think like my family's always been really competitive growing up, and with my brother and my dad, like it's always been a physical household. And in addition to playing football growing up, we would also watch mixed martial arts. I remember one of the earliest memories I have of mixed martial arts was watching a Wanderlei Silva documentary of his old days back in Pride. And so getting experience to that from a young age, I knew mixed martial arts and jiu-jitsu and striking and different parts existed. I got into karate from a young age, but it just kind of wasn't physical enough for me, wasn't my style, and eventually was introduced to jiu-jitsu through a neighbor. Went to a gym called Dominance Mixed Martial Arts, which I've been with my whole jiu-jitsu career, and fell in love with it from the first session and still training it to this day.
And for those that don't know, because I've only learned about BJJ and what actually Jiu-Jitsu is through Ilan, but what is Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu? How would you best describe it to someone?
Yeah, so I mean, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, it's a form. It started as a form of self-defense in terms of, predominantly back in the day, striking and maybe some kind of wrestling was the kind of considered the gold standard. And then, of course, like the Gracie family sort of took traditional Japanese Jiu-Jitsu and adapted it to be a bit more self-defense focused for the streets. And then basically from there, it evolved into a grappling martial art used to take someone to the ground who doesn't want to get taken down, or if you're taken down, how to fight off your back and either get a submission to finish a fight, so a choke, an arm lock, a leg lock, something along those lines, or be able to reverse the position, take an opponent down and finish the fight from a top position.
Yeah, and why was it so appealing to you, and why do you think to others it is such an appealing sport compared to especially other forms of martial arts like your judo and taekwondo? Why this?
Yeah, I think at least in my childhood, I remember it was always like there's so many different kinds of taekwondo, karate, like everyone had their own style of fighting, and there was this kind of like air of mystery around what was actually realistic or what worked. Like you'd see in like old like kung fu movies, like guys just like ripping people's throats out, and you're like, oh, that's a real thing, but I think it started to become evident that a lot of these places maybe oversold what they could do and maybe didn't have too much realism, whereas when you looked at the early footage of jiu-jitsu and MMA, especially the original UFC events, some of the first ones, you saw guys from the Gracie family like beating larger opponents, stronger opponents with this kind of ground style of grappling and fighting. It gave it a real sense of legitimacy and kind of deadliness, and that intrigued me from the get-go. It was kind of like, oh shit, this is the real deal. Yeah.
My coach has always described it almost like as the great equalizer, because he would train people who are much smaller and then they could compete against people who are much bigger, and it's just the skills really do take over from that aspect. Growing up though, did you know that you had a real knack for it? Because BJJ is one of those sports that it can take a little bit of time to almost feel, you never feel proficient in it, I'm sure. And, you know, someone as a black belt like yourself probably never has those feelings go away. It's probably just get more confident in certain aspects. But for you, did you ever realize like, gee, I'm actually not too bad at this thing called grappling?
Yeah, for sure. Like, I think that was another appeal for me. Obviously, I'm not a huge guy. I'm pretty short, but like this kind of idea that the smaller guy can beat the bigger guy, sort of David versus Goliath thing, of course, was an appeal for me. Me and my brother Jack, like we were also big WWE fans growing up, and like some of my clearest memories are me just having to be the dummy on the trampoline to Jack, whether it's the Batista bomb or FU or whatever. And so I had just through good old fashioned kind of sibling competitiveness and rivalry, like Jack and I would wrestle and fight pretty often. So I think that gave me an edge when I first started the sport. It wasn't a complete foreign thing to me, but what was new was understanding the why and the how, and you know, doing it in a controlled, composed way so that you can compete against those bigger guys and beat them, I guess.
Yeah. Did you ever get the like almost a makeshift fort happening in the living room where you take off the pillows from the couch, make a WWE
Absolutely.
set up
Absolutely.
mat?
Our main one was the trampoline.
Yeah.
And like we would try and set it up near trees because then the trees could act like the top rope.
Oh, no.
You jump off the trees. I just remember like that was our main thing. But we did set up the pillows on the floor once. We used to have a tiled floor at our house.
Oh, God.
Took the pillows off the couch, set it up, and we had like a set of 3 stairs, like not super tall, maybe like, 40 centimeters off the ground, but we would jump off that onto
Do
the
a Randy
pillows.
Orton off there.
And I remember one time I was like, I went to jump and Jack kicked the pillows out and I actually smashed my front 2 teeth on the tiles. So the bottom half of my teeth were fake, essentially.
From that young age.
From a young age.
Right.
And so then I was like, all right, we're sticking to the trampoline.
Yeah.
Oh, far out.
But yeah, fond memories.
Yeah.
Fond memories.
I don't think mum and dad were probably too happy with that.
Not. I think if you took the dentist total bill from all the years, they're definitely not happy about it. Yeah.
No, that's completely understandable. Now though, or at what age were you like, okay, I'm going to start competing? And, because for some people they do BJJ, they don't really compete, but sometimes to get the belt progression, it's something that is part of it's the rite of passage. You've got to compete.
Yep.
When did that start for you? Was it at a white belt? Was it more blue belt?
No, it started from white belt for me. Again, I've always been a really competitive person, and I wanted the proof to show that what I was doing in the gym was translating. So when I first started out, there's local round robins at gyms, and then you got tournaments which are knockout. Whereas the round robins, you might go to a gym, it's kind of open for all people from across the city or states to come into. You guaranteed a few fights, and that was a really kind of low pressure entryway to get into competing. So I would do those, and then you have like your state championships, national championships, Pan Pacifics. They're the bigger ones, which happen kind of once a year, and I got into those from a pretty early age as well.
Wow. So that competitive edge you talk about that you had, did you ever expect it to get to this level though with jiu-jitsu, or did you just more so just enjoy it and do it because you loved it?
I actually like competing in a way is fun, but I'm also not a fan of, like, I've had to do a lot of kind of self-work on mentality and stuff like that because it's anxiety inducing,
Before the fight or actually fighting?
In the fight, it's, it's the cliche, it all kind of switches off. You just focus on what's in front of you. But just the build up before fights, who am I fighting? Or like, are they heavier than me? Or how long have they been training? All that stuff just fills your head. So, I loved the act of actually getting to compete, but I didn't necessarily enjoy all the mental games that came with it, you know.
How did you get better with that over time then? Because starting at 14, you know, you're so fresh, you know.
Yeah.
So how do you, as you mature, get better at that mental side as opposed to the physical side?
I think the biggest thing for me is separating the outcome from who you are as a person. And I think it's such a hard thing in all forms of competition, where it's like, well, if I don't get the win, or if I don't achieve X accolade or whatever, then everyone's going to look at me different or think of me differently. And of course, that's not the truth, or anyone who actually matters is not going to care. So it's just the cliche of like your own worst enemy. A lot of the times you create these false narratives. So for me personally, it was about using the experiences that I've had. Hey, like my family didn't disown me because if I lost, my gym didn't kick me out, my friends didn't think of me any differently, and to reframe competition as a way of getting better and improving rather than it's either win or lose. That was probably one of the biggest things for me.
Now, is that something that you learnt early in your journey, or was that something that you somewhat developed maybe after a few years or after a few losses maybe in competition, where you're like, I probably should reevaluate not just my mental prep, but also the mental recovery of such kind of comps?
Yeah. I think it was a bit of like self-discovery in a way. Like I would hear snippets from coaches or family and stuff like that, but sometimes you got to learn stuff yourself. So I would have competitions where I would go into it and have, 3 weeks of all that what if kind of self-talk, and I would come out of it feeling exhausted and fatigued, both mentally and physically. And then it was a conversation with myself of do you want to keep doing this and torturing yourself, or do you want to find a different why and find positives in good results and bad results? And for me, I'd much rather that second option. So, because I started so young, I didn't really understand a lot of the things about mentality and performance. But as I started to grow and compete more and more and become more consistent, it became how I decided to go about things.
Yeah. We were talking off air about, Ilan doing jiu-jitsu and why I haven't given it a go yet. And he said, why haven't you given it a go yet, mate? And that's the question I want to ask is why do you think people are maybe hesitant to give it a go and don't get stuck into a form of martial arts?
Yeah. And it's a physical, combative, intimidating sport. At the end of the day, you got guys in the UFC who are doing it. Now, that's not saying that gyms are like UFC fights, but it's not a game in the traditional sense that probably a lot of Australians are used to. Like you grow up, you play footy or cricket, whatever. Like those are games. Yes, you're competitive, but at the end of the day, like the main goal is like having fun. Whereas when you go to jiu-jitsu, like the goal is not to kick a ball through into a net. It's to try and put enough pressure on someone's arm so that it feels like it's going to break and they tap out.
It's awesome.
Yeah, it's addicting in a way. It's addicting in a way.
What
but
was it for you? You got that like addiction buzz out of it?
For sure, absolutely. Yeah. But like that's what I think's really daunting.
Yeah.
And that's why like the culture around the sport is so important.
Yeah.
That we're not there to kill each other. We're there to improve each other. But at the end of the day, it's like if I was me now going into a gym, like I got to come to the reality that I'm going to be a 5'7" guy who might, weigh 70 kilos, who might have to go against a 6'3", 110 kilo guy.
Yeah.
It's like, what am I meant to do with that?
Yeah.
So it can be quite daunting. And that's why it's probably one of the biggest downsides to jiu-jitsu is that it does take a little bit of time to understand how you can work with those matchups and what the benefits that come out of that are.
Yeah, right.
So I think that can sometimes be a little bit of a deterrent from people. It's like you go in, you go, fine, I'll do a trial class. And that's the first thing you're hit with. Yeah. Like it's quite like you come home, you're just sitting in the shower like, man, I just got mauled for an hour. But the reward that you get from from not giving up and staying consistent is great, I think.
That's the thing. Like, I don't tend to remember me getting beat up as much now because that's the default.
Yeah.
So I tend to remember more maybe the mini successes, like getting out of mount when I was really, really struggling, or being able to survive maybe 30 seconds or 2 minutes longer against someone who would ordinarily just have their way with me. So I think those elements keep it addictive. It's like almost like gambling. Like, people still gamble, and they'll hope for or reflect on the time they actually won big.
Yeah.
But it's kind of few and far between. The beauty about BJJ is you lose your money, but you're at least getting some sort of skill over time.
Yeah.
And it does switch. And one thing I've learned, I would say for me personally, is I'm way more calm under pressure now.
Yeah.
And it's gotten me to actually...
In life, or just in the...
I would say in life
that?
as well. It's translated, because if there's something almost, I don't know if it's masochistic as much as it is just being able to take a deep breath when every part of you wants to like panic.
Yeah.
But that's been something I've really noticed. And if that's the only skill I derive from that, then that's a W in my book.
Yeah, I totally see what you're saying. It's like there's chaotic moments in the sport where you're not in a comfortable position, or you're close to getting your arm not broken, but like someone's putting pressure on your joints with an arm lock, or you're close to someone getting close to choking you. It's like the ability to understand what's happening in the moment and what you need to do to unravel yourself and free yourself while staying calm and composed under physical pressure is a huge skill. And you see it all the time with people who first start out. It's like you can just completely see them switch off. They're in that subconscious high-brain survival mode, and you have to tell them, like, I need you to slow down. I need you to try and find your breath and just work your way out of it. And I think that's, like you were saying, one of the biggest things, or one of the biggest benefits that people take out of the sport.
Yeah, with those skills you speak about, I mean, obviously growing up in the Viney household where, your dad was that competitive beast and your brother as well, do you think there is a lot of that crossover now, and you're seeing it more so now with footy and martial arts, and a lot of it is a testament to the work you are doing? But is that competitive edge and that almost that resilience to get up when you are getting tackled down hard and almost getting like a choke out at times, was that almost ingrained in you from a young age and has now then translated to what you're doing now?
Yeah, I think it helped me get started in the process, like that competitive nature. But the thing about just having people say like, oh, you got that dog in you or whatever, or just having a competitive nature, like, it'll take you so far, but it can also be a hindrance in a way, because you're not really thinking through things. You're just relying on pure aggression or something like that. And that can sometimes get you hurt in football situations and in martial arts situations. So for me, what I liked about martial arts was being able to understand the why, and use that in addition with controlled aggression or competitiveness to have beneficial outcomes. And I think that's what's transferable to football and elite sports, is that a lot of the times physical contact or contest, tackling, breaking tackles, whatever, it has been kind of just relegated to you either got it or you don't, because you came from a competitive household, or you had brothers, or you were able to fight growing up. But my passion, my purpose is that I'm able to use what I've learned over over nearly 2 decades of grappling, and give people concepts, tools, techniques to develop that at any stage of their playing career or life, so that they don't feel like it's either I'm a contact player or I'm not a contact player. Yeah. That's kind of where I see it transferring.
It's awesome. And with that as well, because coaching now is obviously a big part of what you do, and working with AFL clubs and AFLW clubs. At what point was there almost that light bulb moment where you were like, hang on, like I'm not just a grappler anymore. I'm not just a jiu-jitsu fighter. I can actually make this an implementation into elite sports where it has never really been discovered before?
Yeah. I think like when I first started, it was all in my head, like, oh, I think I can show these players a concept here or a technique there that might help translate to football. And once I actually started getting experience with working with players one-on-one, I started to realize, through no fault of their own, that there was some gaps in knowledge base.
What did you notice?
I think just growing up in football in Australia, it's either one, you just got to be bigger or stronger or do it faster or harder. Like that's the general coaching mentality. It's like, oh, if you need to be a better tackler, you better go spend a year in the weights room and just get stronger. But that advice only helps so many people, you know, and what are you meant to do in that year while you're getting bigger, you know? So I started to realize that there was maybe a gap for technical understanding and implementation that I knew, and through years of coaching and training, I was able to communicate it to these players. So that's kind of when I started to go like, I think I've actually got a lot of value to add here. And then I got opportunities at the club level to implement it across whole squads. And that's, you know, it was daunting at first, but again, it was confidence to be like, I know what I'm talking about and that these players will gain value from it in a way.
Yeah. How did it start? I mean, did it just start with a one-on-one with your brother and what came from it?
Yeah. So it started with me doing a one-on-one with Jack. We did like a session, and obviously he's not a product of me solely. He's always been a pretty good tackler, you know, so there's a lot that I've learned from him about how things translate to football. So I don't take credit for teaching Jack everything he knows. That's far from the truth. But, you know, from Jack, I got to do some work with Christian Petraka, Tom Mitchell. I always say these guys because they were just the first guys that I got experience to work with. And, you know, those guys found value in it. And along with kind of showcasing on social media, I got opportunities to work. You know, Scott Pendlebury was another big one where he's such a pro. He came into the gym and was really curious and found value in it. And so I was just working with one-on-one players from different clubs here and there. And then I got an opportunity to work at North Melbourne Football Club across the whole squad. And then I did that for a season, and I was thinking, oh, well, you know, if that's everything I've done, I'm happy with that. But then the next year I got the opportunity to work at Melbourne, Collingwood, Essendon, Richmond, all in different capacities.
Yeah, wow.
But kind of saw that there was, as well as a lot of AFLW clubs, saw that there was a real desire and want for greater education and training around contest tackling and grappling.
Wow.
Has there been one moment that has almost been something that's stayed with you as an indicator that these players have implemented the grappling learnings and the principles and applied it in games? Is there any moment that sticks with you, maybe whilst watching the football? Or
for sure. Like early days, like Jack was the guy that I worked with the most, just because he's my brother, we're close. Like he would come to the gym the most, and whenever I would watch games and I would get to see like what we were doing in the gym happen in game, it was just like crazy dopamine, you know. You're like, you know, there it is. It works, you know. And so, you know, I slowly got to see that with more and more players and teams that I worked with. So, and that's kind of what really resonated with people online was seeing the transferability. So those are the real moments for me where I kind of, you know, feel that sense of accomplishment and want and drive to keep doing it and bring it to more people.
Has there ever been like maybe like an internal conflict or something, like you go into a football club, you're teaching these players how to tackle, and there's an element of you thinking like, oh gee, these athletes, they've been tackling their whole life. What are they going to learn from me? Like they know what they're doing. And maybe additionally even thinking like, what are the coaches going to think? Are they going to think like I'm just spouting absolute BS, or are they going to appreciate what I'm doing? Did you ever have those sort of thoughts going into footy clubs?
Yeah, for sure. There's always, whenever you get opportunities, I think everyone has a form of imposter syndrome. Maybe I'm not good enough. Maybe I don't know what I'm talking about. And I kind of, it's similar to that competition mindset that we were talking about earlier, where you almost talk yourself out of things. But my lived experience never showed any similarities with that negative self-talk.
Yeah.
It's like, well, wow, these guys, you go to Collingwood, I'm going to go teach Scott Pendlebury. I'm trying to give him a tip or two on how to tackle. But it's never so much about, hey, I know what you should be doing and you don't.
Yeah.
It's about working with the athletes to try and maybe get them thinking about something that they haven't thought about before, or, give them some frameworks to make good outcomes repeatable. The coaches, I've never had any coaches come up to me and everyone's got their feedback, and we're always striving to make it as relevant for football as possible. But, I've never had a coach or a player kind of outright come up to me and say, what you're doing is bullshit.
Yeah.
Because everything that I teach, it's coming from a decade and a half of grappling and football experience growing up in a professional football household. So again, I'm not going in teaching these guys rear naked chokes for football. Everything is highly AFL, AFLW specific. And starting out, it took me a while to just, be able to tell myself, you know your stuff. But now it's just ingrained.
Well, what are the things you actually do as a coach for these AFL clubs when it comes to grappling? Do you watch game day vision?
Yep.
And do you pick up on those things? Talk us through some of the strategies you do it, and what are also the outcome measures to say, hey, this is working, this is getting better?
Yeah. So I'm a big fan of studying footage. So I watch a lot of games, but both from the clients that I'm working with in the year or the clubs, but also just people who are doing amazing things in contest or contact across all clubs.
Yeah.
So I'm a big fan of learning from other players. In terms of what I do, at the club level, obviously coaching, tackle technique, breaking tackle technique, and during the preseason, some grappling work. During the season, it's reviewing tape, identifying areas that need work. We might look at statistics like tackle efficiency and broken tackles and stuff like that. The numbers only tell so much in a way. You also got to look at, why are we getting those numbers? Because, numbers are people, really. They're the players. So is it purely a technique thing? Was it a situational thing? Was it an intent thing? There's many different factors that can show up in those data sets. And that's part of my role, is to understand context as well as the numbers and create a game plan to improve that week to week.
Such an art to it, isn't it? Such an art to the nature. Because I just remember growing up playing footy, the things you get told to be strong in the core, go for the hips, things like that. But if there were 3 tips that you would think you can dumb it down to for a young footy player listening that wants to get better at their tackling at the footy club level, let's just say it's to break tackles.
Yep.
And to actually initiate the tackle as well. What are those 3 tips that you would say in layman's terms?
Okay, so the first thing is, when people think of tackling, they think it's all about the hit or the takedown, right? So people see the big spear tackle, big hip and shoulder, or, a takedown that looks crazy. And those are things that are definitely the most eye-catching. But, similarly with a lot of other physical techniques, whether it's weightlifting or whatever, you got to start with foundations. And so footwork is probably one of the biggest things that if you are trying to make tackles and they keep getting broken, you need to look at, how are you approaching the ball carrier? Are you overcommitting for too long? Are you tracking your opponent correctly? And when it comes time to step in and make contact, do you know how to step in and meet your opponent's momentum with your own momentum? So that would be the first thing, is are you giving yourself the best chance to make a good hit by having proper footwork? The second thing would probably be understanding head positioning, because I think a lot of players are scared of tackling, not because they don't want to do it, but they're scared of getting hurt. And that comes from a lack of understanding of where to put your head and which part of your body you want to connect with to your opponent. So general rule would be to make sure that your head goes towards the backside or behind of your opponent and not in front of them towards their chest side. And that's just because if someone's running forward and you put your head in front of their body, they're more likely to make contact. Whereas if it's behind them, you're typically more safe. And then the third thing would be, closeness is control in a way. So you've done your footwork, you've made sure your head's safe. Now you've actually got a hold of the person. A lot of the times we're like looking at the ball, or, we're just kind of holding on with our hands. The closer you can get to your opponent, the more parts of your body that you can use to actually grab onto them and make them carry your weight. Generally, the stronger your tackle will be, the more control you'll have. So that'd be my 3.
And with all the recent rule changes the AFL has implemented, especially with the tackling. So for example, I think last year, even if you had one arm free, you could get pinned for holding the ball.
Yep.
Has your practice or the things that you teach also adapted throughout this process?
In a way, there might be general things, but like you gotta work on the stuff that has the greatest impact overall. And a lot of these rule changes, like they're little tiny little things here and there, and it's definitely important to acknowledge them and talk about them with your athletes or the squads that you coach. But in general, like if you're not getting to the tackle, you're not going to worry about them having an arm free. Now if you've had a few tackles over a couple of weeks and there's starting to be a pattern that develops, sure, you might address it. But for the most part, you got to focus on the building blocks that have the most impact.
And are footy players generally quite receptive towards the techniques, or not even receptive? Do they pick it up quickly? Because I feel like competitors, AFL athletes, they've got that unique kind of transferability in that they can pick up most sports pretty well. Have you noticed that as well?
I think, for sure. Like, they're all incredible athletes. It's crazy. And again, it's like, it's still tackling. It's not, they're not becoming jiu-jitsu athletes or grappling athletes, but it's just kind of, giving them certain ideas or an understanding of why. And they definitely pick it up pretty quickly, and they're all very receptive to it. Even the experienced guys who have been there for years and years and years, those guys are usually the most receptive to it and excited to get a new detail or something like that.
Out of the players that you've worked with, is there one that sticks with you? I know you're not doing maybe primarily grappling or BJJS training with them, but if any of them were to pick up BJJ, which player do you think would excel?
I always say Luke Davies-Uniacke from North Melbourne, because he actually does jiu-jitsu in his spare time when he can, obviously, outside of football. But he and I have done a few sessions together in the gi, and he loves the sport itself. So he's trying to work towards his blue belt.
Oh, nice.
So he's got a head start on the rest of the competition, and he's pretty athletic and pretty good at it.
Sweet. It's so sick.
Yeah, and we had a mate ask us as well, would you consider keep on training Christian Petracca up in the Gold Coast now that he's up there? Because obviously that was a key part of what you were doing.
Yeah, no, of course. Track's he's a ripper guy.
Yeah.
I've never had nothing but positive experiences with him.
This bloke's a Gold Coast fan, by the way. That's why.
Right. He's kind and he's an amazing athlete. So have no problem. Doing track. Although I don't think he needs too much help. He's pretty good.
I think our mate was keen for you to train the whole Gold Coast list.
Well, I mean, their social media, they're looking like pretty tough themselves. Dude. I think they're pretty focused on the contest. They're looking like they're dialed in.
Yeah.
But I'd love to do some work with Gold Coast.
There you go, shout out. So and you were mentioning before, the whole thing about getting bigger in the gym. That's what you get told about, before when it comes to tackling. Are you doing a lot of work with high performance staff then as well? Do you actually have a bit of input in saying when it comes to tackling, let's train certain things more than others? And what are those things?
At clubs or with individual clients?
Like clubs, yeah.
No, not at clubs, because they have already got elite level strength and conditioning coaches, physios, and that kind of stuff. So it's not my place at all to talk about what they should be doing in the gym stuff. I might because they're all open to chatting, I might, say something like, isometric holds or working your posterior chain are beneficial strength and conditioning things to work for tackling. But I would never say, hey, this needs to be in the program. I just got to focus on what I can control and what I can help the players with in the time that I'm given.
Yeah.
And that's usually some form of technical components, but also getting them to work in situations where they can adapt to in time or real time feedback. So, small kind of games or drills that allow them to problem solve under intense kind of physical pressure, so that they can then try and translate that onto the field.
So, like I asked about the skills question before, do you think there are any fundamental strengthening exercises that a young athlete should do to get better at tackling?
I think, your posterior chain is really important with tackling. So that's like anything behind you. So your lats, scapula, like all your muscles on your back are really important to actually hold on to things. So I would recommend, things like chin ups and, grip strength can help as well. And then in general, with a lot of things, working your legs is pretty important to be able to corral someone, not get sidestepped, and then actually make your opponent feel the impact when you do step in and hit them.
There you go. It's fascinating, because someone like me who has no knowledge about grappling and jiu-jitsu would think just get big in your arms and big in your torso, right?
Yeah.
But often it's not the arm strength, is it?
Yeah, it's a common misconception about tackling. It's like, if I just build like my biceps and triceps,
no one's getting through you.
I can hold on to the guy, but those muscles a lot of the times, like, don't get me wrong, they definitely help, but it's about incorporating as many muscle groups and as much of your body to hold on to someone as possible, not just your arms. So yes, bis, tris, forearms are important, but you've also got to be able to squeeze the guy and hold on. And a lot of that is that kind of rowing motion and activating your back.
But truthfully, would you agree that most of it just comes down to flawless technique? Like,
Oh no, size helps.
Size
and
helps?
Strength helps. That I'm not at all saying that like those things are pointless. It's like in jiu-jitsu, like me against a 100-kilo guy who doesn't know jiu-jitsu, sure, technique is like really, really important. But if that 100-kilo guy is the same level of jiu-jitsu as me, he's going to have an advantage. And it's the same in tackling. So you want to have as many advantages and tools that you can, as well as good technique and understanding, to be an efficient tackler.
what's one learning you've had through doing BJJ? Because I feel like it's that sort of sport. It means more to a lot of people because there are a lot of, I'd say, it's a perspective changer in a lot of ways. I think the more confronting a sport is, the more likely it's going to have an impact on your general worldview or your view of yourself. What's one thing you have been able to take away through your journey?
I think just that, like, I'm capable of more than I think, because I think it being such a physical, grueling kind of sport, like being able to empower myself with strength and conditioning, jiu-jitsu and whatever, to, be able to defend myself against bigger people or whatever, like that's empowering. And I try and take that into every other part of my life, whether it's, like, I can't learn how to do things in business. It's like, well, no, you can. You got to put in the hours, you got to put in the work, and you'll get there. It takes time, takes perseverance, all that stuff I've kind of learned from jiu-jitsu. So I think that would be the biggest takeaway from me, is that, one of the things I like to say is, like, whether you tell yourself you can or you can't do something, you're right either way.
Yeah.
So that's kind of been shown to me through jiu-jitsu. I try and take that into every other part of my life.
Yeah, wow, mate, you're an introspective person as well. We can absolutely see that.
Try to be.
It's bloody great. And with that, I mean, I remember watching one of your videos, and you mentioned that a big part of your learnings, I think particularly one-on-one, I'm not sure if you do it at club level, maybe you do, but is actually the whole reflection process after you've taken people through drills and you reflect on the good, the bad, what needs to be worked on. Do you get opportunity to do that a lot at club level, where you actually reflect and impart a lot of that like introspective learning about what's actually going on, so they understand the art and almost better their confidence and mentality, like we spoke about much earlier?
Yeah, for sure. It's hard with AFL clubs or AFLW clubs because time is really valuable.
Yeah.
Like even in their training, like each drill is segmented, time constrained. Like we got to get through X amount of things in this time. So as much as I'd love to go up to individuals and have that one-on-one conversation with them, that happens a lot less. You kind of have to look at what are the main things that are coming up across majority of the group and consolidate it into a format that you can present to the team in a short amount of time, so that we can then make the changes out on the track.
Yeah.
So there definitely is that kind of area of, hey, this behavior is coming up more often than not, and it's either hurting us or it's doing really well, because it works both ways, bad things and positive things. And then, okay, how can we give that to the group and educate in a simple but effective way, so we can either keep the positive things going or make the necessary changes.
Yeah, I think it's such a fascinating area to be working with. I think football, in a lot of ways, is one of those sports that, because it recruits so many athletic domains, it's always going to be attracting maybe novel ways. So I feel like grappling is filling that hole at the moment. I think there's even more stuff that might come out of it as well, because I think Sam Darcy comes and trains very occasionally at the gym.
I've heard that he does it. That's awesome.
He's a beast. Like he's actually, and
he's got the body for it as well. He's so long.
But what's insane is just the core strength as well. Like he's tall, he's lanky, but he's got impeccable control of his limbs, and he knows how to kind of control not just kind of his movements, but the tempo in which he does it. So I think all of these things are probably transferable, and I think most people don't have to be, in a way, convinced that grappling knowledge or principles has transferable effects. I don't think also just in football. I think you could probably transfer that somewhat into like soccer, but pure or other sports that require some sort of engagement with body.
Yeah.
Going forward though, for yourself, what does kind of the next 5 years look like for you if you were to forecast? Are you wanting to move into other sports? Are you wanting to stay within the AFL domain, or do you just have an open mind?
Yeah. I mean, I think the first thing in regards to what you're saying about Sam Darcy and the kind of things that he's able to take from it, I think it's one of the things that grappling can help with, because you got dedicated tackle training, and then you might have grappling as a secondary supplemental tool, right? Because when you look at stoppages, tackling or marking contests, yes, there's big moments like the hit or the takedown, whatever, that can be taught in very clear kind of technical terms, but you have all this stuff in between, which you might want to call like the gray area. And that's everything that fills that space in between those big moments. And those things are traditionally like pretty hard to boil down and replicate. So I think that's where a lot of the benefits from grappling comes from, in terms of like your balance, like being able to absorb contact, knowing how to lean against someone in a stoppage. That's where a lot of that beneficial stuff can come from. And some people will look at that stuff and go, what's the point of doing that for AFL or whatever? And they're not wrong. Like, again, if you're doing stuff that's just so far out of the realm of the sport, I would 100% agree. Like, we probably need to make this a little bit more specific. And it might not be something you do every day or every week, but there can be, benefits from there going into the sport. In terms of kind of where I see myself in the next 5 years, I want to keep, educating not just AFL clubs, but I want to try and leave as positive impact on junior level and grassroots level in football, especially around safe tackling and stuff like that. I want to make sure that, we're not losing any players out of fear of injury or hurt. So I think that tackling in contest is a undercoached or misunderstood area. So one of my main goals is to, empower junior athletes, boys and girls in safe techniques so that, they don't leave this AFL for some other sport. And then I'd love to transfer into, NRL or rugby or something like that. Those guys already got a fair bit of tackling and grappling going on, but I reckon there's still some stuff I can help out with. So, yeah, I'd like to kind of move into that.
Bloody awesome. Now, before we wrap up, Max, one thing we ask our guests before we wrap up our shows is what is your sweet spot? And we incorporate that with these muffins that we've got sitting next to us that you guys will see on our socials as well, which we give our guests. So what is your sweet spot from 2025? Would you say one moment that was like a moment that sticks out in your mind that you're like, yep, that was a bloody good moment, or it was a really pivotal, important moment for me?
Far out. In terms of like tackling, grappling, and
anything,
all that
mate.
kind
Anything.
of stuff.
Yeah.
Could be more personal as well.
I think a sweet spot for me was just, the years was the first year that I was working at multiple AFL clubs as a tackling and grappling coach. And it started as an extremely daunting process. And I had to learn a lot about managing time, energy, along with relationships and personal life. So, I think this year gave me a lot of tools to be able to handle stress as well as those personal things. So, I'd say my sweet spot is right now as I go into the next few years. Grateful for what 2025's taught me.
You've earned your muffin.
Thank you.
Now, Max, before we wrap up, where is the best place that people can find you?
So they can find me on Instagram, so Max Viney Jiu-Jitsu. Post instructional stuff on there, or breakdowns around contest and tackling. I've got a website, maxvineyjiujitsu.com, if they want to learn more about my coaching and want to get in touch. Yeah.
And you do groups and private lessons as well?
Yeah, I'm mostly at AFL clubs at the moment, so I don't work too much in terms of like privates or small groups anymore, but I am coming out with some online content to help fill that void for people who want to figure out how to tackle safely and effectively.
Sick,
Fantastic.
mate. Thank you for jumping on the pod.
No, thanks so much for having me, guys. It's been awesome.